And welcome to our first Play Club, The Trip to Bountiful by Horton Foote. I'm Rick Dildine, Artistic Director here at ASF. Play Club is a part of our ASF Insight series where we take a deep dive into all things theatrical. So it's my pleasure to welcome our panelists. First, Elizabeth Gregory Wilder is an Alabama native. She's a playwright, a producer, and professor. She's previously the playwright in residence here at ASF and is currently the Tennessee Williams Playwright in Residence at Sewanee, the University of the South. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone.
Greta Lambert is also an Alabama native. She's been a company member here at ASF since 1985. She's played most of Shakespeare's women and dozens of other leading ladies. She's a director, a teacher. An American Theater magazine named her one of the 10 regional actors you should get in your car and drive to go see. And you don't have to drive anywhere tonight. So please welcome Greta Lambert.
Hi. What are we going to be talking about, Elizabeth?
So we have a wonderful evening planned to talk about Horton Foote's wonderful, charming, endearing play, A Trip to Bountiful. I just wanted to give you guys sort of a brief recap. So the story is about Carrie Watts, who is an older woman who longs to escape the cramped Houston apartment where she lives with her very protective son, Ludi, and her daughter-in-law, Jessie May, who you get the sense, doesn't like her very much. And Carrie wants to return to her beloved hometown in Bountiful, Texas, one final time before she dies. So one day while Ludi is at work and Jessie May is at the drugstore, Carrie escapes to the bus station and she befriends a young woman there named Thelma. Now, one of the things that she and Jessie May have gotten in a little bit of a disagreement about is a missing check, her pension check. And so Carrie has absconded with the check and use that as a way to get to Bountiful. So she gets on the bus. She only has a little bit of money. She meets this young woman named Thelma, and they travel toward Bountiful together. But she learns she can't get to Bountiful, so she has to stop off in Harrison, Texas. And that begins sort of the second part of her journey, where she begins to learn that her beloved town is not the same as what she remembered. And eventually, her son and daughter-in-law arrived to take her back home, but she does make it there to see her home one last time.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a little background on Mr. Foote here. Horton Foote was born March 14th, 1916 and died in 2009 in Horton, Texas, which he uses as the location for many of his plays, but he learned early on in his career to change the name of the town. So he called it Harrison. At age 16, he went to acting school at the Pasadena Playhouse. He told his mom and dad he wanted to be an actor. And then he moved to New York and studied with the Moscow Art Theater method. Then he had his Broadway debut in 1944. With Only the Heart, which he wrote because he wanted to give himself a great role. But what happened was the reviews said he's better as a playwright than an actor. So he sort of saw the writing on the wall. Started writing for TV. He won an Oscar for Best Adaptation of a Screenplay, our Best Screenplay Adaptation for Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. So next time you see Gregory Peck's To Kill a Mockingbird, know that he wrote the screenplay. Other awards, he won an Oscar for Tender Mercies. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his play, The Young Man from Atlanta. Wrote over 60 plays in his lifetime. And in 2000, he was awarded the National Merit of Arts by President Clinton. But our play starts its life in 1953 when he was writing for television for the Philco Television Playhouse. And he had a 1-hour play called The Trip to Bountiful. And he wanted Shirley Booth. That was his first choice. He wanted Shirley Booth to play Carrie, but she didn't want to play an old lady. So So they got Lillian Gish to play Carrie. She not only played it in the television production, but he expanded it to 2 hours, and it opened on Broadway in 1953. So both productions also introduced Eva Marie Saint, if you remember her. And in 1985, he recommended Geraldine Page when they were going to do the film version of The Trip to Bountiful, and she won an Oscar. Then there was a revival in 2005. I think that's the one you must have seen, right? And then in 2013 was another revival with Cecily Tyson, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Vanessa Williams. He was often called, and I think this is because of his Moscow arts training, the rural Chekhov, or the American Chekhov, because the way he talked about ordinary people, he used realistic language, characters dealing with conflicts of inner peace, which kind of segues to our play.
You know, one of the things that I think is so interesting about this piece is the fact that it dates back to 1953. You know, I knew it was an older play, but I didn't realize it was that old. And the fact that it keeps coming back, and I think that's a testament to the timelessness of the story and the timelessness of the writing.
Yeah, and it certainly has themes that are relevant to us today. I think probably one of the main things, and it's something you and I talked about, and that's home. And the funny thing was, an hour ago, because of Elizabeth, I made the connection of the first time Elizabeth and I worked together was a play called
The Furniture of Home.
Yes, which also dealt with home. So that was a give me chills kind of moment when you pointed that out.
And you know, it's a theme that continues to come up because it is something that we all, you know, we all deal with, this myth of home and how we define home. But I think there's also something interesting about how we romanticize home and how we romanticize memory and the past. You know, when you read this play, you see that Carrie has very much romanticized what life is like back in Bountiful. And if she can just get back to Bountiful, everything will be okay. It's never quite clear if she thinks she's going to stay there, you know, because she says, I need to go see it before I die. When she first starts talking about it, but then, you know, sort of as the story goes on, but I think that's interesting. It's something that we, you know, we're constantly dealing with as we get older. You know, there's the moment in our life when you buy your first home. There's the moment in your life where your parents sell your childhood home, and how we find attachments in place, and what creates that place, what creates home, and this idea of what are the things that help us create a home, you know. And for Carrie, you get this sense that she's lived in Houston all these years, but home will always be Bountiful.
Yeah, and Foote was also inspired by a poem of Robert Frost called Directive. There's a house that is no more a house, upon a farm that is no more a farm, in a town that is no more a town. So I think that's a lot of home, is what changes from the way we remember it, and that, as you say, our memory becomes completely unreliable. Mm-hmm. But she feels like if she can just make it back to Bountiful, she will regain her dignity. And I also think part of her trip is about knowing that she's getting older. She talks so much about, I know I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. So I think she's kind of facing that thing at end of life where you stop and sort of reflect. And mm-hmm. she wants to reconnect somehow with home.
It's a very sort of old-fashioned, well-made, I call them quiet plays. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But he does such a masterful job of setting up the world of these characters, of planting these little bits of information, especially in that first part of the play, that then we see pay off. It's interesting when you mentioned that the play started out as a one act. And I would be so curious to know what he added. Did he add the first part? Did he add the last part in Bountiful? Or did he sort of always have that but fleshed it out in between?
Yeah, I
And
couldn't find the television script.
it would be so interesting to be able to take, the first draft of this play and the final
Yeah.
draft of the play and look at them side by side to see what has changed.
Another thing I remember talking to you about was that I was fascinated with the title,
Mhm.
The Trip to Bountiful. And I kept thinking, okay, it must mean that the trip is the important part. And Cecily Tyson even said, it's the journey, not the arrival, but the journey. And I think so much happens with Thelma, the daughter she wished she'd had, so unlike Jessie May. And she's able to give something to Thelma. She quotes the 91st Psalm. So she gives something, and I think that strengthens her.
Mhm.
And Ludi, or Luddy, however you say his name, I think when he arrives, I think he's taken a trip too,
Mhm.
because he's able to stand up to his wife
Mhm.
and his mother and say, no, we're going to be fair. Things are going to change, but it's going to be fair. And he allows himself to remember some of the things that he said he doesn't want to remember because it's so painful.
Yeah, there's this, there's something beautiful about that moment when she gets back. It's heartbreaking in that, what she remembers no longer exists. But at the same time, you're so happy she made it. So happy that that Carrie got that experience. It was not the outcome that she wanted, but she accomplished her goal, and
Yes,
that felt really great.
she was able to breathe that Gulf breeze and be around the land, see the birds, and she drew strength from the dirt itself. And yet at the same time, she says to Ludi, this land used to be all cotton fields. It's all overgrown. Pretty soon it's going to be timber. Then someone will come along and mow it all down and plant something else, and it will grow and then go back. She spoke of kind of the cycle of life. And I thought that was beautiful because she was looking at this dilapidated house, but could see the continuum of it. And so to me, then the trip became like a pilgrimage.
I want to quickly screen share a few pictures from the production.
Oh, we
with you
forgot
guys.
about that.
Yeah, but just so you can get a visual, I think it's important to be able to see how something comes off the page when it's fully realized. So here we go. So this is one of my favorite pictures of Horton. So here is Lois Smith um, from the production of Trip to Bountiful that I saw. It started at the Goodman in Chicago and then moved into New York. Here's another just scene shot. And there she is with Thelma. And here's the production that Greta mentioned earlier with Cicely Tyson. And this, I think, is really important. This play was written in 1953. And I'm sure that in 1953, Horton Foote probably it probably didn't cross his mind that this play would ever be done with an entirely African-American cast. But I think that the fact that it was done, and it was done very well, and it was so well received, and of course, we could all watch Cicely Tyson read the phone book, is really a testament to his writing, but also to the timelessness of this story. One thing that's interesting about Horton was he was a devout Christian Scientist, and he and so he was a very spiritual man, and I think that comes through in his writing, because I feel like even though his plays have references to the Bible, they're not necessarily religious plays. but there is a certain sort of level of spirituality in the things that he writes and the characters he creates, that I is really interesting too. Um, so let's see. Some of these are comments that we got on the different themes. The love of land came up. Independence, dignity, and autonomy, so vital for the elderly. My grandmother is 105 now, and I would say that watching her struggle with independence and autonomy has been sort of beautiful and heartbreaking all at the same time. So definitely, someone else says perhaps mistakes of the past life. Definitely. You do feel like there's something about Carrie that feels unfulfilled.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Such a great image of her just wandering around the house, staying up late at night, rocking in front of even Jessie May says all she does is sit in front of that window and look out. And you can just imagine that she's looking into the future, looking into the past, whatever.
Yeah, and she tells that story about the fact that she never loved her husband. And that's so heartbreaking. The thought of, living your whole life with someone you weren't really in love with, all because you weren't allowed to marry the person you did love.
Yeah. And again, she's being told what to do by somebody else. Her father didn't want her to marry the guy she was in love with.
Right. And, and I think it's also illustrates sort of that small town life where, there are lines drawn and there are feuding families, and, one family doesn't marry into the other family, and
right.
Sort of the small town gossip and stuff that goes on there. But, it also tells us that Letty wasn't born out of a marriage that was about love. It was a marriage of duty. Also, I think it's also a bit of a hallmark to small town America, to these dying towns, where
and urban development.
Yeah. There are probably McMansions on that land now. You drive through these small towns, and and you could imagine what they once were.
Yes.
And to know that they would never be that again. And you would see these homes, these beautiful homes that were, all run down, and to imagine what they looked like in their days of grandeur. And let's see what else we have here. James says Jessie May is so unsympathetic that she's almost a caricature. As an actress or a director, how would you humanize her? Good question, James.
I would definitely downplay all her, I guess I need to be careful with all her witchiness. And I think if you just know what she wants certain things out of life. She needs her life to be run a certain way. And I think if an actor just plays that objective, what do I need? And the frustration of not getting what she wants, I think the rest will take care of itself.
Interesting. That is a really good question. Because you can see how that character could very easily cross over and become a caricature. It really.
And then we lose all the conflict then. If we know right off the bat, oh, she's the big Southern, witch lady, we've got no conflict at all. So I think she has to be as human as Carrie.
Oh yeah. And I think that's one of the challenges with really playing a lot of Southern characters, is not letting them flip into the stereotype, not making the easy choices or the expected choices. I think that's one of the things Tennessee Williams did so well is, he wrote all these wonderful Southern characters that we all recognize, but they're so well written that they don't necessarily become caricatures when they're played. Someone says that Amazon Prime has the Geraldine Page version free streaming, so you can check that out. So Bruce and Sarah said, oh, hold on, I lost this. Does anyone have sympathy for Jessie May? It must be difficult to share a small apartment with your mother-in-law.
Right?
Yes, definitely. Well, and the fact that it's not a 2-bedroom apartment. Like,
no,
she's living in the living room.
She's sleeping on the couch at night.
Yeah, so I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
So
they're just all cooped up together.
But in a lot of ways, Jessie May is a lot like Carrie in that she's not living the life she thought she'd have.
Yes, the life she wants. Mm-hmm. And her husband was ill, so they're in a lot of debt. So again, she's not getting to go to movies. She's not getting to go into the town and do, shop, the things that she wants to do.
Do you think the name of the town Bountiful is significant?
Yes. I think it means fullness, the fullness of life that she used to have. That's where the spirit becomes renewed. So that's what, in a way, I think it's like a pilgrimage, because she is going to be spiritually renewed, and only Bountiful can do that. Mm-hmm. So I think definitely he picked the name to describe what it is, what it means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's I think it also sets up. There's also the sort of the idea of what is bountiful. What is a good life? What is having what you need? And everyone, what is successful? Everyone has their own definition of what that is. And these people were living pretty simple lives. So what they saw as a bountiful life is probably very different from what most of us see as a bountiful life.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's great irony in the fact that Bountiful is run down and vacated and decaying.
Mm-hmm. So we've got someone here that said, let's see. This is one of my all-time favorite ASF productions was Horton Foote's The Traveling Lady. Do you think the journeys of the two female protagonists in Lady and Bountiful share any common traits or experiences? James, you get the gold star for the day because you've asked great questions.
Woohoo! I was in that production at ASF. I can't even remember the Margaret Ann. I don't remember. But I think they're very similar. They're very different in ages, because the young woman in Traveling Lady is much younger. And her husband has gone off, deserted her with a child. But she is aimlessly trying to find home. So in that sense, they're very, very similar.
And Horton had a commissioned play,
Yes.
by the Shakespeare Festival. So, we have, ASF has provided him with a world premiere. But tell us a little bit about the play.
I will. In 1998, ASF commissioned Horton Foote, and he wrote Vernon Early. My dear friends Philip Pleasance and Jill Tanner were in the production. It was reviewed by Variety, sorry. And here's what they said: staggeringly depressing. Poignant and haunting drama about the sadness, depression, and regret that comes with getting older. It is a very sad play. It's about a doctor very late in life, and he's just exhausted. And it has a lot of older characters. It's mostly older characters, which was fun. But it was so great to have that production at ASF.
Yeah, and it's exciting to know that ASF has been able to, nurture writers at all different stages of their careers too. To give one of his one of his plays,
Yeah.
its production is pretty remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
And really, ASF has such a wonderful history of doing that, and in large part because of the Southern Writers Project and the ability to reach out to writers and give them the resources that they need to be able to write. And what a wonderful experience for the Alabama community to be able to have him there and in residence and developing this piece, and is pretty remarkable as well. It's been wonderful to see how the theater community has once again found creative ways to continue to bring opportunities to audiences, to find creative ways to create programming. Alrighty, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Joining us. It's always a wonderful opportunity. I have to tell everyone a story that'll probably make Greta blush a little bit, but I grew up in Mobile, and I grew up going to the Shakespeare Festival with school, and on the weekends my mom and I in the spring would go up and we do the Extreme Weekend. And so I grew up watching Greta on stage. And so to grow up and to be able to go to ASF and write a play, and then have Greta, someone who was such a hero to me as a kid, have an opportunity to say my words on stage was just such an amazing moment, and such a gift to me as a young writer. And so thank you, Greta, because I think that there are countless other young people who have similar experiences.
Well, The Furniture of Home was a beautiful play and a great experience. We all had such a wonderful time with your play.
Thank you, Greta. And thank you, Rick.
Thank you both. Thank you both. This has been great. I've been sitting here taking notes. So when I do direct it, I'm going to give you credit, both of you credit for this, because it's been absolutely fantastic. Elizabeth, thank you.
Packet, we can send it to you.
Greta, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Our next session, we'll be discussing August Wilson's Jitney. If you haven't seen Fences, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, you can see those now, but we're gonna be talking about Jitney with director Ron O.J. Parson, who directed our production of Pipeline, and actor Ethan Henry, who starred in that production of Pipeline. So thank you all very much. Have a good night.